There's a light in the sky, rising in the air. There's a feeling so strong. It's time to light the fire, like a bright shining light. Learn, getting more out of life. Love, sharing time with friends, feeling so strong.
Hello and welcome to the House of Wellness. I'm Luke Darcy and I'm here at a safe distance from Joe Stanley. Hello, Joe.
Hello, Darcy. This is how we greet each other now.
This is the new way of
Yes.
the world, but we're missing this week our interstate buddy and our co-host, Luke Hines. Clearly, Joe, border closures and travel restrictions means Hinesy can't join us in person, but here's something he prepared a little earlier.
That's exactly right, Darth. I'm still self-isolating and I have so many recipes up my sleeves for you guys in Luke's quarantine kitchen.
Oh, Hinesy, well, the fact we're sitting metres apart and Hinesy's sending us messages because he can't be here is evidence of just how much things have changed here and around the globe.
This is the new reality, Joe, at least for the coming weeks and possibly months. Usually we're looking at how to decrease our reliance on technology and screen time. Well, right now, we need it more than ever.
Oh, and thank goodness for it. Today, all of our interviews will be via Zoom, just one of the FaceTime and video conferencing apps that are helping us all stay connected, which, of course, is just so vital right now.
How quickly things have changed, Joe. Just weeks ago, terms like social distancing and self-isolation didn't exist. Now they're part of our universal language.
It is really surreal, don't you think? And as parents, we're having to find ways to keep our kids entertained, education is challenged, and we really are having to rediscover our families in a whole new way. So there's no swimming or music lessons, parties, of course, sporting activities, the list goes on, which obviously is really challenging. It's hard sometimes to see the positives, but I believe there are some real opportunities to reset and refocus on what's important in life.
Yeah, we're all thinking about our families right at the moment, Joe. Our physical and mental health is a top priority. You know I'm a big fan of meditation, so that's been an important part of the routine. As always, I'm loving the family connection a bit at the moment as well, Joe, that's coming with all of us slowing down.
Oh, absolutely. Meditation is crucial in our house as well, just to reset and remain calm.
Yep, and later in the show, Joe, we're going to be talking to a young Aussie couple who are stuck overseas in Peru. Many of the world's cities have now become virtual ghost towns with public transport grinding to a halt, and once busy streets are now deserted.
Well, Britain went into lockdown on March 25th, and I was lucky enough to speak with someone I trust to give a measured overview of the situation there, author and BBC presenter Dr. Michael Mosley. I began by asking him his perspective on this insidious virus.
It is absolutely unprecedented. As other people have said, this is a 1 in 100-year event. And the terrible thing is that people have been talking about it for a long time. I saw an interview some years ago with Bill Gates saying, "We are not prepared. It is coming. We are not prepared." And it was viewed by about 15 million people, and yet people did nothing. I have made numerous documentaries down the years saying it is coming. And the problem is we've had a number of false starts. So we've had things like bird flu, which didn't actually kill that many people, and SARS. But this one is the real deal. And yeah, it's horrific.
How did you know it was coming? What was your sense for like, how were you able to predict something like this?
Because it's happened before and because it was almost inevitable. The thing about viruses is they mutate, and for a long time we have known that particularly the influenza virus mutates very fast. So that was what people were expecting. It would come from birds. The coronavirus was a bit more unexpected, but one of the things we also have known since SARS and since MERS, which were two deadly outbreaks, is that when you take a virus and you incubate it in bats, bats have a particularly fierce immune response, and any virus that can survive being in a bat is going to be a particularly ferocious and tenacious little beast. And so that seems to be where this one came from. And what makes this one different is that an awful lot of people get infected but don't know they're infected, and they then spread it around, which is what's obviously been happening all over the world. One of my sons has just returned from Melbourne. He was living in a flat with two other doctors, and he came back on Saturday. He arrived on Sunday. On Monday, he got called by his friends to say both of them had come down and been tested for COVID-19. And he's now upstairs with COVID-19.
Oh, and how is he doing?
He's doing fine. I banged on the door this morning and he said he was feeling better. He was a bit achy in his joints. And now I guess we'll see whether I and Claire come down with it. I suspect I've actually had it because I've been feeling a little bit fluey and a bit headachy for the last few days. But I woke up this morning feeling terrific. So I'm hoping that was it. One of my other sons, who is a doctor in the UK, he has also come down with a fever recently. He was working on a ward with patients who had COVID-19. So he's almost certainly got it. He's recovering. But it would be good to know if he's really had it, because that would mean that he was able to go back and work with a degree of immunity. So he would actually be quite safe to go and work with COVID-19 patients in future without too much protective gear, because once you've had it, the evidence is pretty good that you won't get it a second time.
Are we able to be reinfected?
I was speaking to a leading immunologist. I've been a bit, concerned about the development of a vaccine. But this guy who has been working in the field for 25 years with coronavirus and also with AIDS viruses and working on vaccine research, he said he is very, very confident that the vast majority of people who get infected will never get reinfected. And he's also confident, which surprised me, that we will be able to get out a vaccine later in this year, possibly, which struck me as remarkable because that would be an astonishing turnaround speed.
Incredibly quick.
Yes. I mean, it all has to work right, and it all has to... He said the good news about COVID-19, as far as we can see, is it doesn't mutate, it doesn't change that much. It seems to be very stable. And so they've already done the animal studies, and they're talking about human studies. And there are something like 35 vaccine being tested out there around the world, including in Australia, where you have some of the world's leading researchers in vaccine research. So that is kind of, if you like, the good news at the moment, that science will save us.
You know, Darcy, I had no idea that both Michael's sons had the virus before I spoke with him. And as we heard, both are doctors, which really is a reminder that those on the front line are very much at risk.
Clearly, Joe, we don't want anyone to get this, and we're trying to lower those numbers as best as possible. But when you get medical professionals personally experiencing it, it's going to be really interesting to see what comes out of that, and perhaps a solution might be quicker than we think.
Well, interestingly, when Michael's son does recover, he's going to be back at the front line with immunity against the virus.
And that is good news, isn't it? We're going to hear more from Michael Mosley later in the show. But after the break, the man with the big heart who lives and breathes men's mental health has his say right here on the House of Wellness. This is the House of Wellness, where today we're looking at staying connected, motivated and positive. As a parent, I know my kids are asking questions at the moment. We're having some really unique family discussions at the moment, Joe.
With major disruptions to school, limits on how much they can see their friends and being forced to stay home and sacrifice so many things that they love. We're really asking a lot of our kids right now, and certainly my daughter's 11 and she's finding the constant conversation around coronavirus very stressful. So we've had to make sure that there are coronavirus-free zones in the day where there's no talk of it.
Well, that's a good point you make, Joe. It's interesting, my kids have had the same. Go, OK, we get it, Mum and Dad, enough, time to move on. We need a break from some of those heavy conversations. It's honesty and leading by example at the same time, though, staying calm and communicating with people around you, like you've done with your WhatsApp group, Joe, which we're very, very proud of you for that.
Oh, look, I tell you, it's been the greatest joy. We're continuing connecting. I mean, we're sharing things like useful information and where can you buy toilet paper right now, but also we're now swapping books and jigsaw puzzles and all manner of entertainment for each other.
Well, another group of Melbourne parents have been getting just as creative with the neighbourhood spot the picture hunt to keep the kids entertained.
Oh, I just love this. Parents have been putting teddy bears and rainbows in their windows and posting pics of them on Facebook. And then when the families are going out for walks, they've got to go and try and spot them like they're going on a bear hunt. Oh, it's such a beautiful distraction and a great way to get the kids outside and connected with their neighbourhood.
Well, it goes to show how much people are coming together right now, which is really important, particularly for our mental health.
Some practical advice is limit how much time you spend watching the news or reading social media posts about the virus, because it can be very overwhelming and way too much. Find quality, balanced information, stay calm, and really look at managing your mental health in particular. One man who's an expert at this is our great mate, Gus Worland, who is, as always, as positive and upbeat as ever.
I'm doing pretty well. I'm putting in some sort of pretty strict routines into my life and everyone around me's life, just so we can get through this the best we can. Otherwise, I think you can spend days just sort of drifting and drifting and drifting. I'm sort of using every day as an opportunity to do things a bit differently to what I used to do. I get up at the same time, I keep my routines, I eat at the same time, I do a bit of exercise, and then I just crack on with the best sort of work that I can do in the circumstances. As you know, I'm always flying around the country, I'm in and out of offices and stuff, so this is really weird being just at home.
It's particularly difficult when you are in your house and you're isolated and you're feeling all of those, the anxiety that comes with uncertainty. What do you think people should be doing in their isolation that might assist?
I mean, there's a few different things you can do, but the most important thing, I suppose, is just communicate and stay connected. I honestly believe mental health and certainly suicide is a death of loneliness. So we can't be lonely even though we're isolated away from people. It doesn't mean that you can't be in contact with them. And technology is wonderful. I mean, you and I are normally in the studios together for the House of Wellness. Here we are, I'm in my home and you're in a completely different state and we're still having a conversation. The most important thing that you can do, Joe, at the moment is to be checking in with your loved ones, checking in with your village. And when I say your village, that's your people, the people that you love, the people that you care about, the people that care about you, and you've just got to stay connected the best you possibly can.
And finally, Gus, how important do you think is gratitude and finding the blue sky in this situation is?
It's the most important thing, Joe, to find the blue sky in this situation, because I was thinking the other day, when was the last time, a few mates of mine actually woke up in the morning and had breakfast with their family and then took the dogs for a walk or walked the kids to school when the schools were actually open? A mate of mine rang up at me and he said, "Oh, mate, this is awesome. I can crack on with my work. I don't have to worry about the travel to work." I said, "No, mate, you're not thinking about this the right way. If you get on your train or tram or bus at 7 o'clock in the morning, you don't get to your desk till 8 o'clock, then don't start your work at home until 8 o'clock and get up at the same time and spend that hour doing something that you wouldn't normally do, i.e. be with the kids or do your own exercise or walk the dogs or whatever it might be. Don't give work an extra hour. Why would you do that? Give yourself an extra hour. Give your family, give your village an extra hour. Go out and do something for yourself and then start work at home as if you were actually at work. And that's what I mean, going with that routine. We never would have done that before. This is an opportunity for us to look at the way that we actually live our lives and the way that we structure and schedule our lives. At the moment, we are way too out of balance with work compared to ourselves. Let's bring it back so we're a little bit more 50-50 when it comes to looking after yourself and also looking after the people that are paying the bills. They're both extremely important, but I think we've probably gone way too much to the work away from ourselves. So this is a chance to sort of get that back on an even kilter. It's unfortunate that we have to go through trauma and stuff to do it, but that's often the case with human beings. We tend to have a major drama happen before we actually make some changes to our habits. So this is an opportunity to do that, and hopefully when this is all over, keep those habits. You just never know. It might actually, in the end, up being a really good thing for us.
Groups such as Beyond Blue, Lifeline and Gus's own Gotcha for Life have great advice on how to stay fit and mentally healthy, as well as chances to chat and connect with others through their online forums. So head to their websites to find out more, and please reach out if you feel like you need help. Remember, no one is alone in this.
Well said. After the break, it's schooling, but not as we know it, and I'm tipping there could be a lot more of it to come, Joe. That's next on the House of Wellness. Welcome back. Right now, kids around Australia are on Term 1 holidays, although with travel restrictions, this break is anything but the norm. Like everyone, for my family, it's a stay-at-home holiday, Joe, and the kids are finding new ways to keep busy. So far, so good. I've got to say, I've kicked more footballs in the backyard than I did right throughout my entire professional career. I'm going to do a hamstring and a quad, I think, before this is over. But how's things changed in your household?
Well, we actually, unlike a normal holiday, we've brought in a bit of a schedule to sort of soften the blow when we return from holidays and if we have to homeschool. So we've actually said, OK, can you have free time, but let's have some deliberate moments in the day where we plan activities, just so we're warming her up for that idea.
Routine is good.
Yes.
I like the idea of that. With more states deciding to bring the holidays forward and many parents keeping their kids home in the weeks leading up to the break, the big move now is towards online schooling.
Well, more than 1 billion young people around the world are now shut out of classrooms due to the pandemic. So there's no wonder that the massive push here is to get online classes up and running nationwide. Melbourne's Yarra Valley Grammar was one of the first schools in Melbourne to take the plunge.
The school itself sounds quiet, but right now there's a lot of teaching and learning going on. We're in operation, we're open for business.
As schools and students grapple with what education looks like in a changing world, Melbourne's Yarra Valley Grammar has created what's fast becoming the new learning normal. And it's not just about turning on a laptop.
We deliberately have chosen to replicate the school day. Students will log on to period 1 and their teacher is there and they'll greet them and they'll take the role.
Ella.
Yo. It's pretty much like you have the teacher in the room with you and you can still ask them any questions you have. It's just like a normal conversation pretty much.
They can see each other as well and they get excited by those sort of features that they're seeing their friends and having that group conversation. So now you should have your page, a new one looking like.
They'll have a lesson at the end of that hour, they log off, they'll log on to their next teacher and the new teacher's there and they have the lesson as well.
Harvey, do you want to share your screen with me?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I actually really like their structure because we have been so used to waking up at the same times, going to classes. Since even primary school, it's always the same time.
It's pretty much the closest thing you could get to actual school.
They've embraced it better than I thought they were going to embrace it. I was expecting to be really hands-on and I stayed around and just waited to see if any of them needed any help. No, they knew exactly what they were doing.
While there's nothing new about distance education for kids in isolated locations, for city kids, this is a whole new way of learning.
Questions 15 or 18, you know what it is.
Probably the best bit about it is waking up. I get to wake up much later than what I usually would. Just have brekkie and then get online.
No uniforms and easy access to the fridge. It does have its upside. But this is no holiday. There are strict rules that every student has to follow.
When they're on task and in class, and I mean that deliberately, they're in class, we wanted it to be a professional space they're working from. And we thought best that they'd be sitting at a desk or sitting at a bench, not in their rooms, not in their PJs, in something that they might visit a shopping centre in.
You're looking at the amplitude of a wave.
I've been really enlightened, I suppose, by how adaptable people can be when they need to be. We assume a number of things. We assume that perhaps teachers might be a bit slow on the uptake to take up the IT. We assume that students might need a bit of goading into this to make it happen. That's not true. When there's real need, when there's clear and present need for something to happen and for us to be adaptable, we're adaptable.
I think it'll change the future because certainly there'll be avenues where if students are suffering from long-term illnesses like a glandular fever, they might miss a lot of time of school, we can still dial them in, we can still be setting and recording our video lessons this way, they can catch up on their own time. So we're looking at...
We understand that students are looking to us. They're watching us and watching how we react. So principals, teachers, parents all have to, in some ways, put aside their own doubts and their own worries and lead young people and make young people feel that there will be an end to this and we'll get through it. And at the other end, we'll get back to normal life.
I tell you what, Das, I think we need to give a big shout out to all of the teachers and administrators and principals around the country who have worked so hard to support parents and students and to get the learning up online. It's a huge amount of work on top of what they were doing last term, so it's nothing short of amazing.
Couldn't agree more, Joe. It's been an amazing experience at home to see teachers. You actually can listen in on a classroom situation. They've been really balanced and fair, providing extra materials. They've been open to taking extra emails. So I think it is a great point you make that we really should be patient, appreciative of the work the teachers are doing every day, the extra work they're going to. And as we said, some of the creative solutions that are coming out in education are going to be the great positive when we do come out of this.
Absolutely. I think we do need to acknowledge that there are some disadvantaged communities who don't have access necessarily to that kind of resource. Let's remember that the School of the Year has been educating remote children for decades, so this isn't 100% new either, and those kids have been very resourceful. Maybe we need to go back to solutions from leaner times, Das.
Well, I think that's what's happening everywhere at the moment, isn't it? We're pulling out the jigsaw puzzles, the chess set that's got dust on it is coming back out. You're going back to doing times tables over dinner because you've got the time to slow down. So I think perhaps we're getting rid of some of the stuff that wasn't important, getting back to the stuff that is, and schooling's at the forefront of that.
Yeah, I'm a little alarmed that my daughter's Year 5 maths is way beyond my ability already. Yeah. So I don't know what's going to happen there.
Hi, I'm Jay Kisnorbo and I'm all about the latest beauty, hair and makeup trends.
And I'm Polly Harding, and working in radio, I've still got a lot to learn about the beauty biz.
Together, we're going to bust those beauty myths,
strip things back to basics and learn a few new tricks in the process. Jade, I think we've all had that moment where we thought we look amazing, we're going out with all our friends, and then we see a photo the next morning and you've got a white neck and an orange face. Today we want to talk about how to avoid...
At all costs, avoid that.
That happening.
And the best way to kind of counteract that is to blend firstly and choose the right colour.
Can you show me how to do that?
I'm going to show you.
Please.
When choosing the perfect foundation shade, it's really important to firstly understand your own skin. You need to understand if you have a pink or a yellow undertone.
So I've been told that I've got a yellow undertone.
The best advice I give is, first off, if you are someone that has a pink undertone, don't necessarily get a foundation that is a pink undertone foundation. Get something that is more neutral or has a yellow to counteract that pink. So I think the thing that I love about the True Match range by L'Oréal Paris is they've catered for everyone. It's got the hyaluronic acid in it. They've got over 40 shades. So for you, if we picked the 6N, which is a 6 neutral, I would normally just pop it on the back of my hand, because what that does is easy to access and you can warm it up in your fingers before applying it. And then typically, just lightly press it into kind of your jawline and down your neck. You still want a bit of the freckles, a bit of the blemishes to be able to come through. Foundation is just almost like a glass over your skin. So you don't want people to see your foundation before they actually see you. You would rather someone comment and say, your skin's looking flawless. That means you've done an amazing job at applying. Also, don't be frightened to buy more than one foundation. So for me personally, I recommend all my clients buy 2. We can contour with the darker tone foundation. You can do it almost like a bronzing and then apply the lighter in the middle section. So we finished your base, you've got an amazing daytime glow. However, if you want to go on, change that kind of day to night look, a great way to do that is to add a little bit more coverage with a concealer to kind of the centre of the face.
I think one of my biggest fears with foundation is that I'm going to look cracked and dry. And I always want to look as natural as possible, but with this, it's dewy. Fresh, like it does not look like I've got much makeup on.
Welcome back to the House of Wellness. Today we're focusing on the issue that is at the forefront of everyone's mind, the ongoing and far-reaching impact of the coronavirus. Joe, we all know to stay at home and to self-isolate if we're unwell and practice good daily hygiene. This is to protect ourselves, slow the spread and keep the more vulnerable members of our society safe.
Absolutely, Das. We all know that the elderly and people with pre-existing health conditions have to be protected. Here in Australia, there are 100,000 people living with Parkinson's disease. That's a progressive nervous system disorder that affects movement, and it's more prevalent in older people.
But what's great, Joe, is that while we're in a grim time right now, the world of medical research into all kinds of illness and conditions has kept going, and there's some positive news to come out of some recent research into music therapy to help people with Parkinson's.
Traditionally, when you think of Parkinson's, you think of someone with a tremor or shaky movement, or it affects the way that they're walking and they might stumble and freeze and things like that. But the same degeneration or lack of dopamine in the brain actually affects the muscles that we use for speech. Speech declines over time as well with Parkinson's. Some people find the idea of singing for therapy unusual, and they might be a little bit scared at the start and think, well, I'm not a very good singer. But I think when we explain to people it's actually for a therapeutic purpose, and it's not about getting on Australian Idol and being the next big singer, but it's something that's going to be helpful to fight against the decline that's happening in their voice.
If I say, John, speak louder, because he's heard that before and knows that a problem with Parkinson's, he does speak louder. Whereas before it could be me just being bossy.
One of the remarkable things about being involved with Parkinson is that one can talk easily to the other people in the group, that one is aware that everybody else there has Parkinson's. They have their own version of Parkinson's, and that's reassuring.
The voice improves. There's a great increase in volume and in resonance and range.
This has been successful, and it's been successful for Pete because he wants to come. He wants to do the singing. And what I've noticed with Pete and I is he's feeling quite good at that point around lunchtime. So we go out for lunch.
Wah, wah, way. There are other things that are happening with Parkinson's aside from just the motor effects. There are lots of non-motor symptoms too, like apathy and depression. And so even combating all of those things together, we had some really lovely stories from carers about how they would come out of the singing session feeling much more uplifted, both of them, and go out for lunch and chat and say that there would be a flow-on effect during the week, that they would be communicating more at family gatherings and, so yeah, all of those stories were great to hear.
Is it coffee time yet? Is it coffee time yet?
Well done. Give yourself some clap. Fantastic.
There's no doubt our seniors need our support more than ever, and music is a great remedy. Now, Joe, I've never got around to asking you about your singing voice. What's the consensus on the home front from Daz and Willow?
Well, I did once do a singing show. I came runner-up.
Really?
Yes, on Channel 7.
Did you really?
Yes, with Anthony Clear, don't you recall?
No, I missed that.
I was sensational. Anyway.
Now, while Parkinson's is a degenerative condition affecting control of body movements, Alzheimer's targets memory and the brain. It's the most common form of dementia that affects around 250,000 Australians.
Our ageing population means that figure is expected to rise to over 1 million by the year 2050. And while there's currently no cure for Alzheimer's disease, it can be managed, particularly in the early stages.
It's the cause of 2/3 of all cases of dementia, and sadly, Alzheimer's disease plagues one of our biggest treasures, our memories.
So Alzheimer's disease is where we have a build-up of a toxic protein called amyloid in the brain. It builds up in plaques which affect brain function. Alzheimer's disease is much more common as we age. The first sign is usually loss of memory. Now, I'm not just talking about forgetting where we put our keys or who won the Academy Award last year, but regularly forgetting what we had planned to do, regularly forgetting a task midway. We'll be frustrated by the fact that we're continuing to forget our password or how to attach something to an email. Things that we used to be able to do that we're losing the capacity to do.
My journey started almost 3 years ago when my wife started noticing changes in my memory.
After 50 years as a paediatric oncologist, Dr. Keith Waters was well prepared for handling the news that he had Alzheimer's.
We thought we should quickly get it looked into. So we had an appointment to see actually a neurologist, and he said I should go and see someone who specialises in things like Alzheimer's disease. I was happy to do whatever the advice from the experts was. I wanted to keep going on with life as I had before the diagnosis.
The good thing about Keith's story is it shows that he was proactive. He knew that there were memory problems and he wanted to do something about it. Being a doctor, perhaps, he knew about what can be done. Being physically active, at least 40 minutes of exercise 5 days a week. Keeping mentally active, doing mental exercises, crosswords, Sudokus, other programs, card games. Also, having a good diet. Specific nutrients may still be deficient once we know we have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, and that's where we might look to some form of medical food to further enhance the nutritional management of our Alzheimer's disease.
There is no cure for Alzheimer's disease, but getting an early diagnosis can help with slowing the progression.
We need to not be too proud to seek help. We might be needing a bit more help in our day-to-day activities, especially as Alzheimer's progresses, and it's appropriate to have family, friends, etc. help us out. But what we want to do is make Alzheimer's a bit of an unwanted companion rather than the driver of your life.
Welcome back, Joe. Coronavirus has had a massive impact on our ability to travel both within Australia and overseas.
Well, we all know that international and state territory borders have closed and people must self-isolate for 2 weeks if they are moving around. It's affected fly-in, fly-out workers, it's separated families, and lots of grey nomads are stuck in caravan parks or away from their own homes. There's no one this hasn't affected in some way, Das.
We've all seen the images of passengers stuck on cruise ships and thousands of Aussies stranded overseas, many of them in so-called coronavirus hotspots with no way of getting home, including around 300 people unable to leave Peru. I spoke with two of them, George Hurley and Ruby Heasley.
So when we found out that the Peruvian borders were closed, we were in Aguas Calientes at the base of Machu Picchu, ready to do our hike. So this was on the 16th of March. The previous day, on the Sunday, we had done a 6-hour bus ride and 2-hour hike to get to Aguas Calientes. And throughout the day, we had no Wi-Fi or access to phones. When we arrived in Aguas Calientes on the Sunday, none of the hostel staff or anyone informed us of the closure. And on the Monday, when we did find out about it, it did come as a surprise to many people in Aguas Calientes as well as us.
How are you both feeling? Are you well?
Each day actually gets quite a bit easier. Initially, we were very frustrated, not hearing back from the embassies and all of that. It would really get to us and you'd end up crying and feeling quite helpless at the situation. But we fortunately have a girl here who can teach us yoga every day, and we just generally try to keep our minds active, playing cards or board games or whatnot, and just making sure that you're constantly socialising and sharing your feelings with everyone else, because evidently we're all in the same position and we all probably feel the exact same way. So
stressful for your families? How are they coping back home?
For my parents and for our grandparents, they're over 60, they have compromised immune systems, so they're worried for us, but I think they're also worried for their own health. There's just so much that's changing every day. We don't know what's happening, so it does scare them.
And what are your current options on being able to return home?
Our plan is just to get out of Peru any way that we can at the moment. I'm fortunate that I've got an Irish passport as well as an Australian passport, and that's kind of looking like the most logical and the most natural option for us is to, take the Irish repatriation flight. So we could end up in Ireland for a few months before going back to Australia. So we're really not sure. We need to take what we can get. And we're just fortunate that we may have options.
Hey, the good news is we just had word that George and Ruby managed to get a relief flight, Joe, to Ireland. They're not home yet, but they're on the move, which is great.
That is such great news. Look, separation from those we love is something the whole world is struggling with right now. Even here, we're missing Hinesy and his bad jokes.
Don't know about that.
But I know he's in a place that makes him very happy, the kitchen, and this time he's cooking up something to help build our immune systems.
Gerald, I've got to say I'm absolutely shattered that summer is almost over. I'm such a big fan of dining outdoors. I'm a bit of an al fresco man, if I'm honest.
We will miss summer, Heinzie, and what I'll miss is walking on the beach hand in hand with Philippa, the warmth, the sunsets. But now it's getting cooler. We need to start thinking about reinforcing our immune system as resistance to colds and flu.
Well, I'm not going to lie, one step ahead of you, mate, which is why I'm whipping up this delicious roasted broccoli steak. Now, obviously broccoli is super healthy, in the cruciferous family, full of fibre, but another reason I love it is it's perfect for cold and flu season because it's packed with vitamin C.
That's a great choice, Heinzie, because broccoli is full of vitamin C, and vitamin C is very important for helping immune function, for helping us resist the cold and flus that we tend to see this time of the year. And did you know, Heinzie, that broccoli contains 3 times the vitamin C content of an orange, and yet we associate oranges with vitamin C.
I did not know that, but nothing against oranges, but it makes me love these roasted broccoli steaks even more, and I'm just going to whack them in the oven.
They look absolutely superb, Heinzie, but I want you to continue loving oranges because the pulp and the white core of an orange contains bioflavonoids, and bioflavonoids also help you reinforce your immune system against colds and flu symptoms.
Now, I'm finding all of these facts very, very helpful, especially as you know, I'm a bit of a germaphobe. Is there anything else I can do to protect myself this cold and flu season?
Well, of course, Heinzie, and there are foods and supplements containing zinc and olive leaf extract and garlic, and those, again, help reinforce our ability to withstand colds and flu. And don't forget, when you're feeling run down, that's when you're prone to get more of these infections, and that combination is ideal.
Well, that will not be us this cold and flu season, GQ, especially if we dig into my roasted broccoli steaks.
My immune system is saying thank you already, Heinzie.
The A to Z of Vitamins is brought to you by Go Healthy, for superior supplement for healthy energy and vitality. Try New Zealand's #1 premium supplement, now available in Australia.
Welcome back. Coronavirus is obviously dominating the world and people's thoughts. But while it's important to stay informed, it's equally important not to obsess. So take a break from the constant stream of news and focus on other things where you can, Joe. Easier said than done sometimes.
Oh, look, it's not always easy, especially for people with elderly relatives or families of health workers fighting the pandemic. And one of those is Dr Michael Mosley, who's in lockdown in London after both his sons contracted coronavirus. He thinks he too has the virus and can't stress enough the power of looking after your health and following the rules.
I'm, absolutely convinced that if you look after your immune system, it will look after you. And so I think that although I am 63 and therefore technically at higher risk, I'm actually also in very good health, which I suspect has been a good investment over the years. I put my own advice into practice because if I was an overweight type 2 diabetic, which was the route I was heading for, then I would be at massively greater risk now of getting COVID-19. The greater problem has been the fact that young people just have ignored the advice. So you see in Australia, also in the UK, until the military clampdown came, people were still partying, they were still hanging out on the streets, they were still spreading the virus rapidly amongst themselves. And if you're young, then you are relatively immune, but only relatively. We had a story, a young girl, 19, with no obvious other illness, who lives about 10 miles from here. She's the youngest victim in the UK so far, age 19, died from it yesterday. So you're not immune, but the trouble is a lot of people think they are immune. And that said, I think the perspective still is that 80% of people who get it will be okay. they will probably be like my sons. They will have a mild illness and they will recover. It's the other people who we need to worry about.
Where do you think it will end?
I think we are in it for the long term, and I would be surprised if things get better or noticeably better in the next few months. As I said, UK, we're talking May, Australia, I would imagine the same, and that is the peak. That is not the end of it. I think the only way this ends is when we get a vaccine.
Well, Darcy, can't get more straightforward than that. It's easy. Stay at home.
Very clear message, Joe, that one. That's our show for today. Joe and I have also spoken to a lot of people over the past few days, and we're looking forward to bringing you more of those interviews in the coming weeks. If you'd like to know more on anything from today's show, head to the House of Wellness website, houseofwellness.com.au. Tune into the House of Wellness radio show every Sunday with our own Joe Stanley. And don't miss this Sunday's Lift Out featuring Celine Dion on the cover. As always, thanks to our very good friends at Chemist Warehouse. And until next time, stay well, stay home and stay safe.
There's a feeling so strong. It's time to light